Dr. Nixera, a figure of grace and intellect, stood as a beacon of knowledge within the Faraxian race. Her world was one where science had triumphed over every challenge, where diseases were eradicated before they could take hold, and where life itself had been molded to perfection. As a physician, her expertise in alien physiology was unparalleled, and it was this mastery that had led her to be chosen for a mission of great importance, a mission to study a species deemed primitive by the Galactic Union, humanity. The Faraxians, with their advanced medical technology, viewed humans as a species on the verge of extinction, a relic of a bygone era struggling to survive in a universe that had long since surpassed them. Dr. Nixera shared this view as she embarked on her journey to Earth, expecting to find a world crippled by disease, frailty, and the inevitable decay that came with a lack of advanced science. But as her vessel descended through the atmosphere, her eyes widened at the sight of Earth. It was not the desolate wasteland she had imagined, but a world brimming with life. Verdant forests stretched across vast landscapes, cities pulsed with energy, and the skies were a canvas of endless blue. Her heart, so accustomed to the clinical sterility of her home, felt an unexpected stir of curiosity. Upon landing, Dr. Nixera wasted no time in beginning her observations. She moved through human society, cloaked in advanced invisibility technology that allowed her to study without interference. What she saw both fascinated and confused her. Humans, despite their physical vulnerabilities, thrived in ways that defied logic. Their healthcare systems, though rudimentary by Faraxian standards, were intricate and robust. Hospitals were bustling with activity, filled with doctors and nurses who worked tirelessly, driven by a sense of duty that Nixera found perplexing. She observed a mother comforting her sick child, a father tending to his elderly parent, and communities rallying around those in need. There was a raw, unpolished beauty in their interactions, a depth of emotion that transcended the clinical detachment she had been taught. But it wasn't just their emotional resilience that caught her attention, it was their physical endurance as well. The moment that truly shattered her preconceptions came one evening as she was observing a busy city intersection. Without warning, a massive earthquake struck. Buildings trembled, roads cracked, and chaos erupted as people fled in all directions. Nixera braced herself, expecting to see the collapse of a society that had reached its limits. But instead, she saw something extraordinary. Amid the destruction, humans banded together. She watched as a group of strangers lifted debris to free those trapped beneath. A man, bleeding and battered, refused medical attention until others were safe. A woman, her face streaked with dirt and tears, cradled an injured child, whispering words of comfort even as the ground continued to shake. These people, who should have been overwhelmed by the sheer force of nature, fought back with every ounce of strength they had. Their bodies, fragile and imperfect, moved with a determination that seemed almost supernatural. It was as if something within them refused to break, a force that drove them to survive, to protect one another, and to endure. Nixera felt a knot tighten in her chest, a sensation she had never experienced before. This was not the weak, dying species she had been led to believe existed. These humans, with all their flaws, possessed a strength that defied her understanding. It was not a strength of body, but of spirit, an indomitable will that allowed them to face the impossible and emerge on the other side, scarred but unbroken. As the dust settled and the city began its slow process of recovery, Nixera found herself questioning everything she had been taught. What was this force that allowed humans to endure such hardships? How could a species so physically vulnerable possess such unyielding resilience? The Faraxians had long since abandoned their reliance on such primitive instincts, believing that their technology had rendered them obsolete. But now, standing in the midst of a world that had just stared death in the face and refused to succumb, Nixera began to wonder if her people had lost something invaluable in their pursuit of perfection. For the first time in her life, Dr. Nixera felt a sense of doubt. She had come to Earth to study a dying species, but what she had found was something far more complex, a species that, despite its frailties, possessed a power that could not be measured by any scientific instrument. A power that was intangible, yet undeniable. As she prepared to return to her ship, Nixera took one last look at the humans who were already beginning to rebuild, their spirits unbroken despite the devastation around them. She knew then that her mission was no longer just about studying humanity. It was about understanding the true nature of this indomitable spirit, a force that she could no longer dismiss, and one that she feared her own people had long since lost. Dr. Nixera, driven by a deep sense of curiosity and duty, began her in-depth study of human physiology with the meticulous precision that had made her one of the most respected physicians among the Faraxians. Her initial tests were designed to confirm what she had always believed, that humans, with their fragile bodies and primitive medical practices, were a species barely clinging to life. She expected to find weakness, vulnerability, and a reliance on luck rather than any true resilience. Yet, as she delved deeper into her research, her expectations were shattered. The humans she observed, though undeniably less advanced in their technology, exhibited a strength that could not be quantified by any of her instruments. Their bodies, while not as enhanced or biologically perfected as those of her own race, displayed a remarkable capacity for recovery. They healed from wounds that should have been fatal, fought off diseases that should have claimed their lives, and most intriguingly, seemed to draw strength from an inner reservoir of willpower that defied explanation. Dr. Nixera's observations grew more focused. She studied humans from all walks of life, soldiers who had endured the horrors of battle, survivors of catastrophic accidents, patients fighting terminal illnesses. Each case added another layer to her understanding. These humans were not merely surviving, they were thriving in conditions that should have broken them. The more she observed, the more she became convinced that there was something within them, something beyond their physical form, that was driving this resilience. It was in the quiet moments of her research, as she reviewed data late into the night, that Dr. Nixera began to piece together the truth. The human spirit, she realized, was not just a metaphorical concept used to describe their determination or willpower. It was a real, tangible force, one that seemed to influence their very biology. This force allowed them to push through pain, to overcome fear, and to maintain hope even when all seemed lost. It was as if their will to survive was not just a mental state, but a physical one, influencing the way their bodies responded to injury and illness. Dr. Nixera's mind raced with the implications. The Faraxians, in their pursuit of perfection, had long since abandoned the primitive instincts that they believed held them back. They had engineered their bodies to be immune to disease, enhanced their minds to be free of fear, and created a society where pain and suffering were almost non-existent. But in doing so, had they lost something vital? Had they, in their quest for perfection, stripped away the very essence that made life resilient? As she continued her study, Dr. Nixera began to compare the humans with her own people. The Faraxians were undeniably superior in many ways. They were stronger, faster, and far more intelligent. But their strength came from technology and genetic enhancements, not from within. When faced with adversity, they relied on their machines, their medicines, and their engineered bodies. But what if those things failed? What if they were stripped of their technology, left to rely on nothing but themselves? Could they survive as the humans did? The question gnawed at her. She thought back to the earthquake she had witnessed, the way humans had rallied together, drawing strength from each other and from within themselves. Could the Faraxians, in the same situation, have done the same? Or would they have crumbled, unable to endure without the crutches of their advanced civilization? Dr. Nixera's research took on a new urgency. She began to see the humans not as a primitive species on the brink of extinction, but as a living testament to a power that her own people had forgotten. The more she studied, the more she came to understand that this human spirit, this indomitable force, was not just a relic of the past but a crucial element of survival. It was what allowed them to endure, to fight, and to hope when logic and science would have dictated otherwise. Her findings led her to a startling conclusion. The Faraxians, in their quest for advancement, had lost more than they realized. They had lost the very thing that made life resilient, the ability to draw strength from within, to push through pain, to defy the odds and survive. They had become so reliant on their technology, so dependent on their enhancements, that they had forgotten what it meant to truly live, to struggle, and to overcome. Dr. Nixera felt a profound sense of loss, not just for her people, but for herself. She had spent her life believing in the superiority of the Faraxians, in their perfection. But now, she saw that perfection had come at a cost. The humans, with all their flaws and imperfections, possessed a power that her people had long since abandoned. And it was this power, this spirit, that made them not just survivors, but warriors in the truest sense. As she looked at the data before her, Dr. Nixera knew that her mission had changed. She had come to Earth to study a dying species, but she had discovered something far more profound. The human spirit was not just a curiosity, it was a force that could change the galaxy. And as she prepared to share her findings with her people, she knew that her message would not be one of superiority, but of humility. For in the humans she had found a lesson that the Faraxians desperately needed to learn. Buried within the classified archives were documents that outlined a covert agenda, one that had been hidden even from her. The Faraxian leadership, it seemed, had known about humanity's extraordinary resilience all along. They had been aware of this indomitable spirit, this force that allowed humans to survive and thrive despite their physical vulnerabilities. And they had no intention of simply observing it. The Faraxian government had plans, dark, calculated plans, to exploit this resilience for their own purposes. The documents detailed a chilling strategy, to harvest the very essence of the human spirit, to bioengineer it into their own kind, transforming humans into living weapons. These bioengineered soldiers would be stripped of their autonomy, reduced to tools in the Faraxians' quest for dominance in the galaxy. It was a plan as brilliant as it was ruthless, a way to augment their already superior race with the one thing they lacked, the one thing they had lost: true resilience. Dr. Nixera's hands trembled as she read through the details. The very essence that made humans extraordinary was to be used against them, turning their strength into their chains. The thought sickened her, a deep revulsion rising in her throat. This was not what she had signed up for. She had come to Earth to study, to understand, perhaps even to help, but never to exploit. The realization that her people, her leaders, had such callous intentions left her reeling. She felt betrayed, not just by her government, but by the very ideals she had spent her life upholding. The moral dilemma hit her like a tidal wave. She could not, in good conscience, allow this plan to proceed. But what could she do? Exposing the plot would be dangerous, deadly even. The Faraxian government did not tolerate dissent, especially not from someone of her stature. If she spoke out, she would be branded a traitor, hunted down, perhaps even silenced before she could reveal the truth. And yet, if she remained silent, if she allowed this plan to unfold, millions of lives would be at stake. The humans, with all their flaws and vulnerabilities, would be reduced to mere pawns in a game of galactic power. Nixera found herself caught between two worlds, torn between her loyalty to her people and her growing admiration for the humans she had studied. She had always believed in the Faraxian way, in their pursuit of knowledge, in their superiority, but now she questioned everything. Was it truly superior to exploit the weak, to turn strength into weakness, to rob a species of its very soul? The Faraxians had long prided themselves on their enlightenment, but this plan was anything but enlightened. It was brutal, ruthless, and utterly devoid of the compassion she had once believed her people embodied. The internal conflict consumed her. She could not simply walk away, but what could she do? The weight of her decision bore down on her, every option fraught with peril. If she chose to aid the humans, she would be risking not only her life but the stability of the entire galaxy. The Faraxians would not take kindly to interference, especially from one of their own. A galactic conflict could erupt, one that could devastate countless worlds, all because of a single decision. But what if she did nothing? Could she live with herself, knowing that she had stood by and allowed an atrocity to occur? Could she look into the eyes of the humans she had come to respect and see only their doom, a doom she could have prevented? The thought haunted her, gnawing at her conscience, tearing at the very fabric of her identity. She was a healer, a scientist, sworn to protect life, to preserve it, not to destroy it. Dr. Nixera's thoughts drifted back to the humans she had studied, to their strength, their courage, their resilience. They deserved more than to be pawns in a game they didn't even know they were part of. They deserved a chance to fight, to stand up for themselves, to harness the very spirit that made them unique. Perhaps, she thought, there was a way to help them without inciting war. Perhaps she could find a way to guide them, to empower them, to help them realize the potential that lay within. But even as the idea took root, she knew the dangers. If she was discovered, if the Faraxians realized what she was doing, it would mean the end for her, and possibly for humanity as well. The risks were monumental, the stakes higher than anything she had ever faced. Yet deep within her, she felt a stirring, a call to action that she could not ignore. This was not just about her or even about the Faraxians. It was about something greater, about the right to exist, to be free, to choose one's own destiny. Dr. Nixera took a deep breath, her mind made up. She would not allow this atrocity to occur, not if she could help it. She would find a way to warn the humans, to help them prepare, to ensure that their spirit, their resilience, remained their own. It was a dangerous path, fraught with uncertainty, but it was the only path she could take. For in the end, she realized true strength did not come from superiority or power, but from the willingness to stand up for what was right, even when the odds were against you. And so, with resolve in her heart and a plan forming in her mind, Dr. Nixera prepared to do what she had never imagined: defy her own people, risk her life, and place her trust in the very species she had once thought inferior. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: she would not stand by and watch as humanity's greatest strength was turned against them. She would fight, not just for the humans, but for the very principles she had sworn to uphold. Her plan had to be executed with the utmost precision. If she were discovered, it would mean certain death, not just for her, but for the humans she was trying to protect. She began by identifying key human leaders and scientists, individuals who had shown the capacity to think beyond the confines of their current knowledge, who had the vision to lead their people into a new era. These were the people who would be crucial in the coming conflict, the ones who could inspire and guide humanity to defend itself against the impending threat. Using her advanced technology, Dr. Nixera discreetly made contact. She started by subtly guiding their research, planting ideas that would steer them toward understanding the true nature of their resilience. She couldn't simply tell them the truth; such knowledge would be too shocking, too overwhelming. Instead, she nudged them in the right direction, providing them with the tools they needed to discover it for themselves. It was a delicate balance, giving enough to empower without revealing her own involvement. She shared insights into the ways their bodies responded to stress, how their minds could push past the limits of pain and fear, and how their spirit, a force so real it defied conventional science, could be harnessed to achieve what had once seemed impossible. These revelations began to take root, slowly but surely transforming human understanding of their own potential. Scientists who had once believed that the human body was weak and frail began to see it as something far more formidable, a vessel capable of enduring and overcoming the most extreme conditions. But it wasn't just about science. Dr. Nixera knew that the strength of humanity lay not just in their bodies, but in their unity. She encouraged leaders to foster a sense of solidarity among their people, to build communities that could support each other in times of crisis. She guided them to rediscover the power of cooperation, of standing together against a common enemy. This, she knew, would be essential in the battles to come. Humanity had to be more than just strong, they had to be united. As her influence spread, the effects became more and more apparent. Human technology began to evolve, driven by a newfound understanding of their own capabilities. They developed new forms of defense, strategies that incorporated not just physical strength, but the resilience of their spirit. They learned to harness their emotions, to turn fear into determination, pain into resolve. Their medical advancements took on a new dimension, focusing not just on healing the body, but on nurturing the spirit that drove it. Dr. Nixera watched as the humans began to awaken to their true potential. What had once been a scattered, fractured society began to unify, their eyes opened to the reality of the threat they faced. They were no longer just reacting to the challenges before them. They were preparing, anticipating, readying themselves for what was to come. And as they did, something extraordinary happened. The indomitable spirit that had once been a hidden force within them began to emerge, stronger and more powerful than ever before. The humans were no longer the primitive species the galaxy had once dismissed. They were a force to be reckoned with, a people who had discovered that their greatest strength lay not in their technology or their physical abilities, but in the very essence of who they were. This was a turning point, not just for them, but for the entire galaxy. For too long, the Faraxians and other advanced races had believed that they alone held the keys to survival, that their superiority was unchallenged. But now, they were about to learn that true strength was not about perfection or power, it was about resilience, about the ability to endure, to fight, and to overcome. Dr. Nixera felt a deep sense of pride as she watched humanity rise to meet the challenge. She had taken a great risk, but it was one she knew was worth taking. In helping them, she had not just saved them, she had given them the chance to save themselves. And in doing so, she had planted the seeds of a new future, one where humanity's indomitable spirit would become a beacon of hope, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. The awakening of humanity was now unstoppable. The Faraxians, with all their advanced technology and knowledge, would soon face a challenge they had never anticipated. They had sought to exploit humanity's strength, but instead, they had unleashed it. The galaxy was about to change, and it was humanity, with their newfound unity and resilience, that would be at the heart of that change. As Dr. Nixera prepared for the battles to come, she knew that her role was far from over. The humans still had much to learn, and the Faraxians would not give up their plans easily. But for the first time, she felt a sense of hope, a belief that perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy could be something more than it had ever been. And it would be humanity, with their indomitable spirit, who would lead the way. The moment of truth arrived sooner than Dr. Nixera had anticipated. The Faraxians, ever vigilant, had sensed that something was amiss. Their meticulously crafted plan to harness humanity's unique spirit was now at risk, and the leadership, fearing the loss of control, decided to accelerate their agenda. They moved swiftly, deploying covert operations to begin the extraction process, intending to turn humans into bioengineered soldiers before anyone could interfere. But they hadn't counted on the humans being ready. The Faraxians, confident in their superiority, expected little resistance. But when their operatives attempted to carry out their plan, they were met with an unexpected and fierce opposition. Humanity, no longer the naive and scattered species they had been, stood united and prepared. The humans had not only discovered the truth about their own resilience, but they had also developed strategies to protect it. When the Faraxians launched their covert strike, they found themselves facing a species that had evolved not just technologically, but spiritually and emotionally. The resistance was formidable. Human leaders, now fully aware of their potential, had rallied their people with a determination that caught the Faraxians off guard. The human spirit, once underestimated, now manifested in ways that transcended the Faraxians' understanding. It wasn't just about physical strength or advanced weaponry, it was about a collective will to survive and to protect their identity, their autonomy, and their future. As the confrontation unfolded, Dr. Nixera knew that the time had come to take a stand. She could no longer remain in the shadows, quietly guiding humanity from afar. The stakes were too high, and the Faraxians' plans too dangerous to be left unchecked. In a bold and decisive move, she gathered all the evidence she had collected, the classified documents, the data on humanity's resilience, the plans to exploit it, and transmitted it to the Galactic Union. The revelation was explosive. The Galactic Union, a body that prided itself on fairness and order, was thrown into turmoil as Dr. Nixera's report spread like wildfire. The Faraxian leadership's intentions were laid bare for all to see, the plan to turn an entire species into weapons, to strip them of their will and autonomy, to exploit their very essence for the gain of a few. It was a betrayal of the highest order, not just of the humans, but of the values the Union claimed to uphold. The debate that followed was intense. Voices within the Union, both supportive and condemnatory of the Faraxians, clashed in a battle of ideals. Some argued that the Faraxians had overstepped their bounds, violating the principles of sovereignty and the right to self-determination. Others, more fearful of the implications of humanity's newfound strength, called for containment, or even eradication of the human threat. But through it all, one truth became undeniable: humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed or controlled. The Union members were forced to confront the reality that the humans, with their indomitable spirit, had earned their place in the galaxy. They were no longer the primitive beings they had once been perceived as. They were resilient, resourceful, and above all, capable of challenging even the most advanced races. Dr. Nixera's actions had irrevocably changed the course of history. By exposing the Faraxian plot, she had not only saved humanity from a terrible fate, but had also sparked a revolution in the way the galaxy viewed strength and power. The Faraxians, once seen as the pinnacle of evolutionary achievement, were now forced to reconsider their place in the cosmos. They had been humbled, not by a superior technology or military might, but by a force they had long since forgotten: the raw, unyielding power of the spirit. In the wake of the confrontation, the Galactic Union began to shift. Discussions of inclusion and cooperation with humanity grew louder, and the old guard who had sought to control and manipulate were gradually pushed aside. The Union, recognizing the potential for growth and renewal, began to see humanity not as a threat, but as a partner, a force that could bring new vitality to a galaxy that had grown complacent. As the dust settled and a new era dawned, humanity began to rise as a powerful force in the galaxy. No longer isolated, they reached out to other races, sharing their knowledge, their resilience, and their spirit. They became leaders, diplomats, and innovators, helping to shape a future where diversity was not just tolerated, but celebrated. The human spirit, once hidden and underestimated, became a beacon of hope and strength throughout the galaxy. For the Faraxians, the lessons were profound. They had been humbled by their failure, forced to confront the arrogance that had led them to believe they could control the very essence of life. As they reevaluated their own society, many within the Faraxian ranks began to question the path they had taken. They saw in humanity a reflection of what they had once been: resilient, adaptive, and full of potential. And in that reflection, they found the inspiration to seek a new direction, one that embraced the spirit they had so nearly destroyed. Dr. Nixera, though now in exile among her own people, found solace in knowing that her actions had paved the way for a better future. She had defied the status quo, risked everything, and in doing so, had helped to unlock a potential that would change the galaxy forever. The revolution she had sparked was not one of violence or conquest, but of understanding and respect, a shift that would resonate through the stars for generations to come.